Hurdles remain in making residential plots available. Financial Secretary defends his budget proposals. And trio arrested in the U.S. on suspicion of plotting to help Islamic State.
Good evening. Topping our news tonight, more than half of the residential sites in the government's land sale program in the new financial year still need to be rezoned. And overall supply will be slightly less than in the current fiscal year. Owen Fung reports.
Of the 29 residential sites up for sale in the next financial year, 13 are leftovers from the current year. Of the 16 new plots, many of them are in the new territories. The largest one, a plot on Shantong Road in Taipo that covers nearly 4 hectares. In the April to June quarter, 5 residential sites will become available, and they're expected to generate 3,100 units. Together with projects under the Urban Renewal Authority and the MTR Corporation, the government expects 19,000 units will be made available in the 2015 to 16 financial year. That's down by 1,000 units from the year before. Secretary for Development Paul Chan said 15 of the 29 sites still need to be rezoned. But with the rezoning process for 8 sites already started, Chan said he's confident the government can meet the housing target. The development chief also said he won't impose a minimum number of flats that are to be generated from the new sites. He said some of the sites are simply too small for such restrictions and that developers have already been responding to market demand for smaller units.
On the other hand, we have to be mindful of the fact that we need to provide avenues for people to trade up, meaning for people who start off with a small unit and then have family and want to move up. Then, in terms of supply in future years, we need to cater for that.
Chan also announced that a site on Fengxing Street in Ngao Chi Wan will be withdrawn from the land sale program and be used for public or subsidized housing instead. Owen Fung, TVB News.
Tycoon Li Ka-shing says he believes small-size flats will be in demand in the long run and that they won't drop much in value. At his group's annual results announcement, the Chung Kong Holdings chairman said he doesn't expect building costs to go down by much. On political reform, Lee called on those who are responsible and caring to support the government's reform proposal, saying it would have a negative impact on the economy if it fails to pass in LegCo.
Lawmakers scrutinized the financial secretary's budget blueprint today in LegCo. Many of them complain the government failed to make good use of its massive surplus. Ronnie Samtani reports.
The budget surplus in this fiscal year is more than $60 billion. While John Tsang unveiled a package of sweeteners yesterday, he also pointed out that he'd asked government departments to review more than 1,000 fees and charges in accordance with the cost recovery and user pays principles. Officials will next review livelihood-related fees and charges, a move questioned by lawmakers from across the political divide today.
The policy address left a bitter taste in our mouth, and the budget will make us a little bit happier. But on the other hand, you propose to review the fees and charges, and this has completely destroyed the little happiness we had.
Given the colossal reserve and surplus, is it right to adjust the fees and charges like this?
We only ask to recover costs so that the revenue can be used to provide other new services.
Emily Lau of the Democratic Party called on the government to do more for Hong Kong in the long term, rather than simply handing out sweeteners.
We are ranking 25th as one of the wealthiest cities in the world. You are sitting on bountiful reserves. Why don't you make investment in education, long-term retirement protection, healthcare? As far as infrastructure, now we're going to have $70 billion in expenditure. We will be devoting more resources and going forward. to improve the livelihood of the members of the public.
Several lawmakers also raised concerns about reconsidering the introduction of a goods and service tax. The financial secretary explained that we need to ensure long-term revenue and said the government will look into other types of tax that will help broaden our tax base. And on a radio program, some criticized the proposed premium loan guarantee scheme that's aimed at helping subsidize flat owners let or sell out their units. Some callers said it will encourage market speculation, but Zhang argued the scheme is no different from borrowing money from banks. Meanwhile, the University of Hong Kong Public Opinion Program polled more than 600 people on their views of the budget. Of the nearly 530 who responded, 45% said they were quite satisfied or very satisfied. 18% were not satisfied. The net satisfaction rate of 27% was the highest since 2010. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
4 people have been killed in a fire that ripped through a home in Taiwan. The youngest victim was a 1-year-old girl. The blaze began at a 3rd-floor unit in New Taipei City at around 1 a.m. A woman in her 40s managed to escape, but 4 other family members were trapped. They were eventually rescued by firefighters, but were later confirmed dead in hospital. 2 of the victims were the woman's young grandchildren. There's no word yet on what caused that disaster.
3 men were arrested in the United States on charges of plotting to help the Islamic State militant group. Federal officials said one of them spoke of shooting President Barack Obama. Alan Booknia reports.
There was heavy security at the Brooklyn courthouse where 2 of the accused appeared. 19-year-old Akror Saidakhmatov from Kazakhstan was arrested at Kennedy Airport attempting to board a flight to Istanbul, Turkey. He was said to be on his way to Syria to join Islamic State. 24-year-old Abdurasul Jurabuev of Uzbekistan had a ticket for a flight in March. They came to the attention of police in August after posting messages online propagating Islamic State ideology. The FBI recorded conversations between the 2 men using an informant posing as a sympathizer. Jurabuev called himself a dedicated martyr whose plans included shooting President Obama and planting a bomb in New York's Coney Island. A 3rd man, 30-year-old Abror Habibov of Uzbekistan, who also lives in Brooklyn, was arrested in Jacksonville, Florida, accused of funding their efforts. All 3 are being held without bail. The lawyer for one of the defendants said police overreacted.
If these allegations are true, and they're just allegations, they really make us question the approach that the federal government takes to young Muslim men in America. They are very ham-fisted tactics. There is no attempt to intervene, to speak, to explore, to understand. There's just the rush to prosecution.
But a retired U.S. general who's working with an organization to counter Islamic State told a Senate hearing measures like that are necessary.
It's an evil we haven't seen before. And as long as we're at the front edge of this and taking those kinds of measures, I think we have the possibility of keeping it from becoming something that could look like a 9/11.
In Taiwan, the terror alert level went up after Islamic State sympathizers sent a Twitter post showing the landmark Taipei 101 tower under fire from a terrorist attack. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
3 Al Jazeera journalists have been arrested for illegally flying a drone in Paris. Unidentified drones have recently been spotted over the Eiffel Tower and key Paris landmarks. The sightings have baffled French authorities at a time of high security across the country. The trio was taken into custody after police spotted a drone flying in western Paris. Prosecutors say it's unclear what they were trying to accomplish. In a statement, Al Jazeera said the journalists were filming a report on the city's recent mystery drones. Flying drones without a license in France is illegal and carries a maximum 1-year prison sentence and a fine. French authorities say the drones currently pose no threat apart from the risk of falling on someone.
The U.S. Supreme Court appears to be leaning towards the protection of religion in a workplace discrimination lawsuit. A Muslim woman claims she was denied a job because she wore a headscarf to the interview. Samantha Eloff says an Abercrombie & Fitch clothing store in Oklahoma refused to hire her in 2008 because she wore a headscarf or hijab for religious reasons. The 9 justices heard arguments in an appeal brought by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which spoke on behalf of the Muslim woman.
I am not only standing up for myself, but for all people who wish to adhere to their faith while at work.
The fact is, Eloff did not ask the company if it would allow her to wear the scarf for religious reasons. So, Justice Samuel Alito said there was no reason not to hire her unless the company assumed she would wear the scarf every day. The quandary in this legal question is whether Eloff was required to ask Abercrombie & Fitch for religious accommodation in order to prove it violated the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That act bans employment discrimination based on religious beliefs and practices. Eloff's case could set a major precedent.
It can have extreme broad ramifications across the board amongst religions, including the Jewish faith and the Christian faith, because all of these religions wear articles of faith.
The company admitted it denied Eloff the job because her headscarf violated its policy of the collegiate image it requires its staff to wear. In addition to Muslims, groups representing Christians, Jews, and Sikhs are also backing Eloff. A ruling is due in June.
Bosses at banking giant HSBC have rejected calls from British lawmakers for them to quit over the bank's Swiss tax scandal that allowed clients to dodge paying taxes up to 2007. Chairman Douglas Flint and Chief Executive Stuart Gulliver told a panel of MPs they were having to clean up after a terrible list of control and compliance failings.
I'd like to put on the record an apology from both myself and from Douglas for the unacceptable events that took place at our private bank in Switzerland in the mid-2000s, which is clearly an apology we'd like to make to you all, to our customers, our shareholders, to the public at large. It clearly was unacceptable.
The two men said the allegations of wrongdoing have had a devastating effect on HSBC's reputation. They blamed the local management in Switzerland for most of the failings. Outside the hearing, dozens of demonstrators called for tax evaders to be sent to prison.
And still ahead in our newscast, CLP says it's under pressure to raise tariffs. Madonna takes a tumble in London. And a setback for Arsenal in the Champions League.
A little this, a little that. It's all in the details. A slice of life with style. A piece of info, entertainment. Naturally or unnaturally. Even dramatically, if you so wish. This March on Pearl, where things come full circle.
Cavalia, the best show ever. A magical encounter between man and horse. Cavalia opens March 31st under the white big top tent at Central Harborfront. Tickets on sale now.
How is the telescope a time machine? What do humans and dogs have to do with the secrets of the universe? Why does time stand still when you travel at the speed of light? And how did book burning in ancient China affect scientific thinking? Wednesday, Cosmos, a space-time odyssey at 9:30 on Pearl. The time now is 7:44. The time check was brought to you by Seiko.
Welcome back. CLP says it is under pressure to raise tariffs further. The power giant blames that on higher operating costs. Liz Yoon